Let me begin with a truth that may shame is not a flaw in our character. It is a wound in our story. A wound that tells us we are not good enough, not worthy enough, not smart, successful, thin, rich, or brave enough. And most of us, we spend our lives trying to cover it up. We armor up with perfection, with performance, with pretending. We numb, we hide, we hustle. But here's the bold truth. You can't selectively numb emotions. When you numb shame, you also numb joy. You see, shame thrives in secrecy. It grows in silence. It multiplies in judgment. It wants you alone in the dark, believing you're the only one who feels broken. But the real power, the real rising, begins when you step into the light, when you name it, when you feel it, when you say, this is shame. This is hard, but this is not the end of my story. We've all been there. Moments that suck the breath out of us. Maybe it was a failed relationship, a dream that slipped through your fingers, a job you didn't get, a moment where your voice trembled or your voice buckled or your spirit felt crushed. In those moments, shame doesn't whisper, it screams. You are not enough. But that voice, it lies. And we rise when we learn to answer it with the truth. Let me tell you, embracing shame is not about wallowing in it. It's about facing it, naming it, holding it up to the light and saying, you don't get to write the ending. Shame says, you're broken. But courage answers, I'm still here. Shame says, you'll never be loved if they really knew you. But vulnerability says, here I am, imperfect and worthy. We wired for connection, yet shame tells us we are unworthy of it. The irony, the very thing that shame fears most, empathy, is the thing that kills it. When we say to someone, me too, I felt tapped, shame loses its grip. It cannot survive being spoken. And when we dare to tell our stories, messy, real, unfiltered, we invite others to do the same. That's not weakness. That's leadership. The strongest people I've ever known are not the ones who've never fallen. They're the ones who've stood back up, bloodied, bruised, hearts cracked wide open, but still rising. And not just rising, rising stronger. Because they've done the work, they've sat with their pain, they've refused to run. They've looked shame in the eye and said, see you, but you don't get to silence me. We don't grow by avoiding discomfort. We grow by stepping into it, by staying curious, by asking, what is this trying to teach me? Every moment of shame holds a mirror, not to your inadequacy, but to your humanity. It reminds you that you care, that you long for connection, that you're wired for love, not perfection. So stop asking yourself, what will they think? And start asking, what do I need to live true to who I am? Stop hiding your scars. They are the proof that you survived, that you endured, that you are capable of feeling deeply and still choosing to show up. You want real strength. Own your story, every messy chapter, every ugly cry, every time you said the wrong thing, fell apart, or felt small. Your story is not shameful. It is sacred. And when you learn to hold it with compassion, you learn to hold yourself. So here's what I ask of you now, not tomorrow, not next week. Right now, stand tall, shoulders back, eyes forward, look shame in the face and say, don't it to decide how this story ends. I do. Shame thrives in silence. Speak it to weaken it. When we keep shame hidden, tucked away in the shadows of our minds, it grows. It feeds off secrecy and isolation. The longer we keep it unspoken, the more power it gains. Shame whispers in those quiet moments, convincing us that we're the only ones struggling, the only ones who feel inadequate, the only ones who've ever made a mistake so terrible it must be hidden from the world. But the truth is, shame isn't unique to a few. It is a universal human emotion. Everyone, no matter how strong or successful it may seem on the outside, has experienced moments where they questioned their worth, moments when they felt unlovable, unworthy, or simply not enough. The danger lies in our reaction. I've been conditioned to see vulnerability as weakness. So when shame shows up, we push it down. We lock it away, bury it beneath layers of perfectionism, denial, and performance. We smile when we want to cry, laugh when we feel like screaming, and say, I'm fine, when we're anything but. That act, repeated over time, chips away at our authenticity. It creates a gap between who we and we think we need to be. That's where the real suffering begins, not in the event that caused our shame, but in the silence we wrap around it. That silence becomes a cage. But there is a powerful way to break free from that cage by speaking our shame. The moment we name what we're feeling, the moment we dare to say, I feel ashamed, or I don't feel good, or I'm afraid people won't love me if they knew this about me, we take back control. Naming shame takes courage. It requires us to lean into discomfort, to resist the urge to shut down, to allow ourselves to be seen in our rawest form. And yet, that is where freedom lies. Because once we name it, shame can no longer hide in the dark. It loses its invisibility cloak. Speaking shame doesn't mean standing on a stage and airing all your wounds for the world to see. It means finding safe spaces. Spaces of trust, compassion, and empathy, and being honest within them. It could mean a conversation with a trusted friend, a therapist, a partner, or even journaling truths to yourself and have avoided for years. Speaking it aloud transforms the emotion. It takes it from an oppressive internal burden to a shared human experience. When we hear ourselves say it, we also start to hear how universal it is. And when others respond with empathy, understanding, or even their own stories of struggle, a powerful shift occurs. that heavy, lonely feeling begins to lift. We start to believe maybe we aren't alone after all. There is a kind of magic in vulnerability. It invites connection. It bridges the gap between me and you. When you speak your shame, you give others permission to do the same. You break the illusion that everyone else has it all together. And in doing so, you open a door, not just for yourself, for everyone who has ever carried pain silently. That's the kind of courage that changes people. It's the kind that doesn't require perfection or answers, just honesty and heart. For many, the fear of being judged keeps them quiet. The fear of rejection, of being misunderstood or diminished is real. But here's something we rarely talk about. The silence is often more painful than the shame itself. Carrying it alone for days, months, even years, builds an inner narrative that begins to define us. We start believing we're not worth of love, success, or peace. That narrative becomes a lens through which we see the world, and it clouds everything. Our relationships, our dreams, our self-image. But when we speak our truth, we shatter that lens. We create a new story, one where we are human, not perfect, brave, not flawless. It's important to remember that shame is not guilt. Guilt says, I did something bad. Shame says, I am bad. And that's why it's so toxic. It attacks who we are, not just what we've done. That's why the antidote isn't just confession. It's connection. It's allowing ourselves to be seen, flaws and all, and finding that we're still accepted, still loved, still enough. The moment someone looks into your eyes, have shared your deepest shame and says, me too, is the moment shame begins to loosen its grip. Culturally, we're not taught how to deal with shame. We're taught to run from it, deny it, distract from it, or bury it. But those tactics never work in the long run. They might bring temporary relief, but they create long-term damage. Repression leads to depression, avoidance to anxiety. The only way out is through honesty, through expression, through speaking what we most fear to say. Even if your voice shakes, say it. Even if your hands tremble, speak it. Not for validation, not for sympathy, but for liberation. Because the truth is, you are not the only one. Your story, with all its pain, mistakes, and moments of shame, is not too much, is not burden. It is a bridge to healing, to connection, to resilience. You cannot heal what you won't allow yourself to feel. And you cannot transform what you're too afraid to name. When you speak shame, you take the first step toward reclaiming your worth. You stop hiding. You stop pretending. You start becoming whole. You start letting others see the real you, the strong, resilient, beautifully imperfect you. And in doing so, you start to live a life that is no longer defined by fear. You are not broken. You are becoming. There is a world of difference between feeling broken and being broken. Feeling broken is human. It means you've experienced hurt, loss, failure, disappointment, but it doesn't define who you are. We often confuse pain with identity. When things fall apart, when relationships end, when dreams slip through our fingers, when we make mistakes we can't undo, it's easy to believe that we are broken repair. But what if those moments, the ones we try so hard to hide or erase, are not signs of ruin, but signs of transformation? There is a quiet beauty in becoming. It's not loud, not perfect, not tied up in neat conclusions. Becoming is raw. It's full of tears of doubt, of sitting in the in-between space where it passes behind you, but the future is not yet clear. It's a process of shedding the layers that no longer serve you, the expectations, the shine, the masks, and uncovering something real with it all. We don't give enough credit to the strength it takes to break open and still keep going. Becoming means you're growing, even if it's messy. Especially if it's messy. The narrative that says we have to be flawless in order to be valuable is a lie that causes so many people to suffer in silence. Perfection is not the goal. Authenticity is. There is nothing weak about having gone through hard things. There is nothing shameful about having scars. Scars are proof that healing happened. They are not evidence of weakness, but symbols of survival. You carry the strength of every moment you thought you couldn't get through and did anyway. Every time you kept showing up, even when your heart was heavy. Every time you faced the world with a trembled voice and still chose to speak. We live in a world that loves finished products. We celebrate polished, confident, successful versions of people, not the part of them that broke down to get there. But the truth is, we are always becoming. There is no final version of ourselves. We are constantly shifting, adapting, learning. And if you are in a season of pain, it doesn't mean you failed. It means you are on the edge of growth. Becoming is the quiet revolution that happens when we lean into our discomfort instead of running from it. People often say things like, I don't even recognize myself anymore, as that's a terrible thing. But what if not recognizing yourself is part of evolving? What if the shedding of who you are is necessary for the emergence of who you're meant to be? Transformation doesn't always feel good. In fact, most of the time, it feels like being lost, like being undone. But being undone isn't the same as being broke. It's the beginning of being rebuilt. You are not falling apart. You are falling into something deeper, truer, more powerful. We are taught to equate strength with composure, to hold it all together, to never let anyone see us crack. But real strength is not about never falling. It's about what you do after the fall. It's in the moments when you get up, despite not knowing what comes next. It's in the choice to keep moving forward, even with uncertainty in your heart. Becoming often means walking through fire. It means allowing old beliefs to die. It means grieving the parts of yourself that were tied to validation, approval, and external success. That grief is sacred. It makes space for new growth. The fire does not destroy you. It refines you. You are not behind. You are not late. You are exactly where you need to be to become who you were meant to become. The journey doesn't have to look like anyone else's. You're not supposed to have it all figured out. You're supposed to keep going. There is no timeline for healing, no deadline for discovering your purpose. Becoming means being gentle with yourself, even when the world tells you to toughen up. It means trusting that the messy, uncomfortable middle is leading you somewhere meaningful. And here's what becoming really is. It's choosing not to give up on yourself. It's refusing to believe that your worth is dependent on how productive, attractive, successful, or perfect you are. It's knowing that your value is not up for negotiation. That even when you feel lost, you are still enough. That even when you see progress, your presence still matters. That the fact that you are here, breathing, trying is a quiet act of courage. You are not broken. You are becoming. You are becoming wiser with every failure, softer with every heartbreak, braver with every fear you face, and stronger with every storm you weather. Growth is not always visible from the outside. Sometimes it's internal. Sometimes it's in choosing to rest instead of quit. Sometimes in saying no. Sometimes it's in finally saying yes. Every decision to honor your truth, no matter how small, is a step in your becoming. Even in your darkest moments, you are not starting over from scratch. You're starting from experience. And experience is a teacher no textbook can replicate. You've earned your perspective. You've walked through fire and come out on the other side with a deeper understanding of yourself. That's not brokenness. That's evolution. That's becoming. Vulnerability is not weakness. It's the birthplace of strength. We live in a world that often celebrates the polished image, the carefully curated version of reality where everything appears perfect and in control. We're conditioned to associate strength with stoicism, with the ability to hold everything together no matter what, to never crack, to never falter. But the truth is that version of strength is a fade. It is brittle, hollow, and unsustainable. Real strength doesn't come from pretending we have it all figured out. Real strength comes from showing up exactly as we are, scared, uncertain, raw, and choosing to be seen anyway. Vulnerability is the courage to show up without guarantees. It's standing in the center of your truth and saying, here I am, knowing full well that others might not understand, might judge, might walk away. It's revealing parts of yourself that aren't polished or packaged, but honest and real. That takes a level of bravery that hiding could never require. Hiding is easy. Masking your truth is simple. But to stand in the light with your heart exposed and your guard down is one of the most powerful things you can do as a human being. There's a reason we fear vulnerability. It feels dangerous. Because it is. Vulnerability asks us to risk. It asks us to open our hearts in a world that doesn't always respond with kindness. But it's in that risk that connection lives. It's in that openness that love, creativity, and courage are born. You cannot have deep relationships without vulnerability. You cannot access joy, belonging, or intimacy if you are unwilling to be seen for who you truly are. Every meaningful part of the human experience, love, loss, hope, grief, ambition, begins with vulnerability. So many people confuse vulnerability with weakness because they associate it with emotions that are uncomfortable. Sadness, fear, doubt, rejection. But vulnerability is not about being emotionally fragile. It's about being emotionally honest. It's about acknowledging your fear and walking forward anyway. It's about saying, I don't know how this will end, but I care enough to try. That's not weakness. That's extraordinary strength. Vulnerability is the birthplace of resilience because it teaches us that we can survive exposure. We can speak our truth and still belong. We can fall and still get back up. In our culture, we're taught to armor up, to keep our guards high, to push through, to hustle, to never let anyone see us sweat. But that armor doesn't protect us from pain. It prevents us from fully living. It keeps us disconnected. The walls we build to protect ourselves from getting hurt are the same walls that block love, connection, and understanding. We think we're being safe, but we're actually being distant. And over time, that distance turns into loneliness, disconnection, and a deep longing to be truly seen. Vulnerability is what cracks those walls open. It's what allows someone to truly know us, not just the version we present to the world, but the real version, the one with insecurities, hopes, wounds, and dreams. And when we let someone in like that, and they respond with compassion instead of judgment, we experience something deeply healing. We experience belonging. We learn that we don't have to be perfect to loved. We don't have to earn connection. We are worthy just as we are. It's easy to believe that vulnerability is a risk not worth taking, especially if we've been hurt before. If opened your heart and it was broken, if you've shared your truth and it was dismissed, it can feel safer to shut down. But shutting down doesn't remove the need for connection. It just buries it under layers of fear. The goal isn't to avoid vulnerability. The goal is to practice it with the right people. People who've earned your trust, who can hold space for your truth without trying to fix it or diminish it. Vulnerability with boundaries is powerful. It teaches us to share selectively, to say who deserves to see the sacred parts of our story. When you embrace vulnerability, you open yourself up not just to pain, but to joy, to beauty, to wonder, to growth. Vulnerability is what fuels creativity as the artist who shares their work, the writer who puts words to emotions we all feel but rarely express, the entrepreneur who risks failure to build something meaningful. Nothing extraordinary is created without vulnerability. It is the engine behind every act of innovation, every heartfelt connection, every brave step into the unknown. Strength is not found in never needing anyone. Strength is found in saying, I can't do this alone. It's in asking for help when you need it, in admitting when you're struggling and saying, I'm not okay, and trusting that you are still worthy of love and support. There is immense strength in that kind of truth-telling. It doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. We have to stop glorifying emotional suppression. The person who never cries, never asks for help, never reveals their struggles is not stronger. They're just more armored. And armor doesn't build connection. It builds isolation. The bravest people are the ones who've learned to walk through life without their armor, who've learned that being real is more important than being perfect. Vulnerability creates a ripple effect. When you show up authentically, you give words permission to do the same. Your courage becomes a mirror for theirs. You become a safe space not just for your own truth, but for others who are longing to share theans. That's how change begins. Not with grand declarations or flawless strength, but with quiet acts of bravery, with hearts laid bare, with one person saying to another, this is me. Will you still stay? Own your story or it will own you. We spend so much of our lives trying to outrun the parts of elves we wish didn't exist. The mistakes, the heartbreaks, the failures, the shameful moments we hope no one ever finds out about. We push them into the corners of our memory and pretend they didn't happen. We build lives around avoiding those moments, convincing ourselves that if we can just moing forward fast enough, we'll eventually forget them. But the truth is, you can't run from what's inside you. You can't erase the past by ignoring it. What you resist will persist. What you avoid will eventually control you. When you don't own your story starts to shape your decisions, your self-worth, your relationships, your beliefs, all from the shadows. The fear of being exposed, of being found out, keeps you small. It keeps you silent. It keeps you from fully living because deep down you believe that if people knew the whole truth about you, they wouldn't love you. And so you edit yourself, you perform, you pretend. And all the while, the unspoken chapters of your life continue to influence how you show up in the world. Owning your story doesn't mean you're proud of every part of it. It means you refuse to be ashamed of surviving. It means you take back your power by saying, Iqbal, yes, this happened. Yes, it hurt. Yes, I made choices I regret. But those experiences do not define who I am. They are a part of what shaped me. When you do that, you begin to live from a place of authenticity rather than fear. You begin to let go of the need to be perfect and embrace the freedom that comes with being real. So many of us carry the burden of untold stories. We carry trauma that has never been named, grief that has never been acknowledged, thoughts that have never been spoken. We fear that if we tell our stories, we'll be judged, rejected, or labeled. But the irony is that silence doesn't protect us. It isolates us. It keeps us locked in patterns of shame and self-doubt. Healing doesn't happen in silence. Healing begins when we acknowledge what's real and choose to face it, not with judgment, but with compassion. When you own your story, you begin to see yourself not as a victim of life circumstances, but as an active participant in your own becoming. You take responsibility not just for your pain, but for your healing. You start asking different questions. Not did this happen to me, but what can I learn from this? How can this make me wiser, more compassionate, more grounded? You shift from shame to ownership, from fear to freedom. It takes incredible courage to look at the parts of your story that are hard to face, to sit with the version of yourself that felt broken, lost, or afraid. But that's the version that needs your love most. That's the version that needs to be seen, not judged. To own your story is to sit beside your younger self, the one who didn't know better, who was doing the best they could with what they had, and say, I've got you now. I see you. I'm not leaving you behind. That kind of self-compassion is transformational. It rewrites the internal narrative. It shifts identity from being someone defined by wounds to someone rising through them. There's a reason storytelling is so powerful. Stories connect us. They remind us that we are not alone in our struggles. When you share your story, even the parts that still make your voice shake, you offer others permission to be honest about their own. You create space for connection. You replace isolation with understanding. And suddenly, your pain isn't just yours anymore. It becomes a bridge to someone else's healing. That's the ripple effect of vulnerability truth. But owning your story isn't just about telling it to others. It's about telling the truth to yourself. It's about no longer minimizing your experiences, no longer pretending things didn't affect you when they did. It's about validating your own pain and being willing to feel it rather than suppress it. It's about facing the moments that were hard and saying, this mattered. I matter. That kind of honesty isn't always comfortable, but it is necessary because until you name it, you can't transform it. Until you own it, you can't reclaim it. Owning your story also means letting go of the fantasy version of your life, the one where everything was perfect, where you were never hurt, where nothing ever went wrong. It means embracing the truth that life is messy and imperfect and full of contradiction. You can be both strong and struggling. You can be both wise and learning. You can be both grateful and grieving. When allow all of that to coexist, you stop fighting reality and start flowing with it. That's where your real power lies. There's no shame in being a work in progress. In fact, there's beauty in it. The cracks in your story are not flaws to be hidden. They are where the light comes in. Every experience you've lived, every challenge you've faced, every lesson you've learned has brought you here. And here is a place of potential, a place of healing, a place of truth. Empathy is the antidote to shame. When we are caught in the grip of shame, it feels like we are completely alone in our struggle, isolated in a way that no one could possibly understand. Shame tells us that if anyone really knew what we were dealing with, they'd turn away. It thrives in secrecy, feeding off our silence and fear. It convinces us that we are the only ones who have made mistakes, the only ones who feel unworthy, the only ones who have fallen short. And because of that belief, we stay quiet, we hide, and we distance ourselves from words, all in effort to protect ourselves from the judgment we assume is inevitable. But there is one powerful force that can disrupt the cycle of shaying empathy. Empathy doesn't try to fix or solve or compare. It doesn't tell you to get over it or explain why you shouldn't feel the way you do. Empathy simply says, ooh, hear you. I see you. I've been there too. And that small act, being seen and understood in your rawest, most vulnerable state, is what begins to loosen shame's grip. It tells your nervous system, your heart, and your mind that you are not alone. And that changes everything. The thing about empathy is that it cannot exist alongside judgment. You can't be empathetic and critical at the same time. Empathy requires presence. It requires us to lean in, to hold space for someone's experience without trying to minimize it or explain it away. That presence is healing. That kind of witness, someone who can hear your story and still look at you with love, has the power to transform shame into connection. When you open up and share your struggle, someone who responds with empathy, a shift takes place inside you. It's not just that you feel better because someone listened. It's that shame loses its power. It can't survive in the light of human connection. What once felt heavy and consuming begins to feel lighter because someone else is holding it with you. And when that happens, we begin to rewrite the stories we've been telling ourselves. Stories like, I'm not enough, I'm not broken, or I don't belong. Empathy rewrites those narratives into something more truthful. I'm human, and I'm not alone. We all have the capacity to offer empathy, but many of us were never taught how. We confuse it with sympathy or advice. We rush to make someone feel better, not realizing that our need to fix often comes from our own discomfort with pain, not from the needs of the person who's hurting. Empathy isn't about having the right words. It's about presence. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is, hey, I'm here with you. You don't have to carry this alone. One of the most profound experiences in life is sharing something we've been ashamed of and hearing someone say, me too. That moment creates a bridge. It reminds us that pain is universal, that struggle is part of being human. When we realize that others have walked through similar fires and come out the other side, we gain hope. We begin to see our own story through a different lens, not as something to hide, but as something that connects us to others. It's also important to remember that empath isn't just something we give to others. It's something we must learn to offer ourselves. Self-empathy or self-compassion is critical in the process of healing from shame. It's easy to beat ourselves up over our mistakes, to replay old conversations or failures in our minds, punishing ourselves long after the moment has passed. But shame cannot survive self-empathy either. When we begin to speak to ourselves with the same kindness and understanding we would offer to a close friend, we create an internal environment that nurtures healing. Offering empathy to yourself sounds like, of course you feel this way. This is hard. Or, it makes sense that you're struggling right now. Or even, you're doing the best you can, and that's enough. These simple phrases, say with intention and gentleness, can counter the harsh self-talk that shame loves to counterfeit. They remind us that we are allowed to be imperfect and still be worthy of compassion and care. Creating a culture of empathy starts with small acts. Choosing to listen instead of judge, to be curious instead of critical, to stand beside someone instead of pulling away. It means recognizing that every person we meet is carrying something, even if we can't see it. It means choosing presence over performance, connection over correction. When we embody empathy, we become safe places for others to fall apart and be held. And that is a sacred kind of strength. Empathy requires us to slow down, to be mindful, to truly listen. It invites us to feel with another person, not for them. It asks us to show up not with solutions, but with our whole hearts. And when we do that, we contribute to a world that values human over perfection. We contribute to environments, in families, friendships, workplaces, where people are allowed to be real. This kind of environment is not just healing for individuals, it's transformational for communities. Empathy leads to understanding, and understanding leads to trust. Trust creates spaces where people can grow, take risks, speak up, and rise after they fall. Without empathy, shame festers, but with empathy, shame recedes, and what's left in its place is connection, resilience, and hope. Rise strong, not in spite of shame, but because of it. Shame in all its weight and darkness has the power to paralyze us. It makes us question our worth, doubt our abilities, and fear the judgment of others. It tells us that we're not enough, that we'll never be enough, that something is wrong with us at our core. And yet, inside the depths of that emotional pain lies an unexpected invitation, the opportunity to rise. Not after the shame is gone, not when everything is healed and perfect, but right in the middle of it. Rising strong doesn't mean avoiding shame or pushing past it. It means moving through it, facing it head on, and emerging on the other side with deeper wisdom, clarity, and courage. So often, we think we have to wait until we feel better, stronger, more confident before we can rise. We tell ourselves we'll speak up when we're more certain, we'll try again when we've healed completely. We'll take the leap once we've erased all traces of fear and doubt. But that moment never really comes. The truth is, rising begins when we take action while we're still uncertain, still scared, still feeling the lingering sting of shame. It's the decision to show up anyway, with shaky hands, a trembling voice, and a bruised heart. That defines what it means to rise strong. Shame has a way of turning us inward, making us hyper-focused on our flaws, our failures, and everything we think we're lacking. It shrinks our world, disconnects us from others, and creates a false belief that we must be perfect to be worthy. But when we learn to rise because of our shame, when we recognize that the very experiences we want to hide from are the ones shaping our strength, something changes inside us. We stop seeing ourselves as broken and we start recognizing ourselves as resilient. Every fall, every misstep, every painful moment you've endured holds the potential to grow something new within you. Shame doesn't destroy you. It reveals you. It brings to the surface everything you've tried to suppress, your deepest fears, your hidden insecurities, your unspoken wounds. And when those truths rise up, you get to decide what to do with them. Will run from them, or will you use them as fuel for your transformation? Rising strong means choosing the latter. It means making peace with the parts of your story that once made you feel unworthy. It means learning to carry your pain without letting it define you. It's a process, often slow, often uncomfortable, of reclaiming your voice, your truth, and your worth. There's nothing easy about it. It requires grit, honesty, and the willingness to feel deeply without numbing or running away. But within that process is something powerful, a sense of self that is no longer dependent on external validation, on how others perceive you, or on how closely you fit into someone else's mold. The beauty of rising through shame is that it builds a different kind of strength, not the loud, performative strength that the world often celebrates, but a quieter, steadier strength that is rooted in self-awareness and self-compassion. It's the strength of someone who has fallen and gotten back up, someone who has faced their darkest emotions and learned how to sit with them, someone who has looked at their reflection with all its imperfections and said, "I'm still worthy." That kind of strength thought be taught in books or earned through achievements. It's forged in the fire of vulnerability, shaped in the crucible of emotional struggle, and tested in the face of fear. There will always be voices, both internal and external, that try to keep you down. Shame will whisper that you're not enough, that you're too much, that you'll never change. But rising strong means learning to answer back with truth. It means developing an inner voice that says, "I am enough, not because I'm perfect, but because I am real." It means anchoring yourself in values that matter to you, in a sense of identity that isn't dictated by your mistakes or the opinions of others. This process is not linear. You will rise, fall, and rise again. Some days you will feel powerful and whole, and other days the weight of shame might try to pull you back down. But rising strong isn't about avoiding the fall. It's about learning how to get back up every single time. It's about recognizing that the fall is part of the journey, and each time you get back up, you become more grounded, more centered, authentically you. And along the way, you begin to see the power of your story, not the glossy, edited version, but the real one. The one that includes the tears, the doubts, the breakdowns, and the breakdowns. That story becomes a testament to your resilience. It becomes proof that you've walked through fire and still found a way to keep going. It becomes a light for someone else who is still sitting in their own darkness, wondering if they'll ever find the strength to rise. Rising strong because of shame also teaches you to stop apologizing for your humanity. You no longer shrink yourself to fit in. You no longer pretend to be okay when you're not. You no longer trade your truth for someone else's comfort. Instead, you step into the fullness of who you are, not despite the shame you've felt, but because you allowed yourself to feel you're still kept moving. You begin to trust yourself again, to believe in your ability to handle hard things, and to know that your worth is not dependent on your past.